Hello everyone, glad you could make it. Today, we'll be painting the first Zaku of the year with the high-grade Origin Mobility Zaku used by the Black Tri-Stars in the Origin anime. As like all Origin kits, this one is awesome and one I can highly recommend. The Origin lineup did great things for Zeon fans. I chose to build this one off camera. As much as I like making videos, it is nice just to snap up a kit for yourself, and I also built it without instructions, which happens when the Origin Zaku in its various forms is the kit you build more than any other. But with that out of the way, let's paint this thing. I primed with Mr. Servicer 1000, it's the standard gray color, and sprayed a coat of Tamiya TS42 light gunmetal, then start off by painting all the frame pieces in German gray. I normally go with basalt gray, which is lighter, and an almost perfect color match with the gray plastic in these kits, but I wanted to shake things up a little. I'm also using this color on the inside surfaces to indicate that this is the primer color. I don't like the look of the main color on the insides of parts, it just doesn't seem realistic to me, but the darker color also makes visual sense as shadows would accumulate in these deeper areas. While you see me mix up this first green, I wanted to briefly cover the thought process behind the colors you'll see me paint today. I knew I wanted to do mass production colors, which I've only done once for Kukuru's Doan Zaku. I'm basing the general concept off the Baoa Defense Force Zakus, which have checkerboard striping on the skirt, but making the actual colors more like the Brennus Ox or early production Mobility Zakus, where the colors are more yellow than actual green. That being said, I'm not doing an exact copy of those colors, but something in that general ballpark. If you want to see me paint those classic Zaku greens, you can watch that video on Dawn Zaku. Those colors are darker than what you see in the original Gundam anime or Stardust Memory, but they are perfect for the Origin series and is one of my most screen accurate paint jobs. As is the case with most Zeon color schemes, the darker color goes on the torso and waist. In the Master Grade about Zaku, the backpack is green, which I chose to copy. I usually paint all backpacks in the same color I do the frame, but I don't do Mobility Zakus that often, and I like how different this looks. I'm mixing up the second color, which is probably the brightest green I've worked with. More than half of this color is yellow, so it might even be more accurate to say that it's a greenish yellow instead of a yellowish green. Whatever the terminology is, this color shows up much brighter on camera than it does in real life. It's actually crazy how jarring the camera makes this color look. It took me a while to figure it out, but the way this color appears on camera is like the super bright green Lego uses. I know this isn't a Lego channel, but I just thought I'd make that comparison. In person, this color isn't that much brighter than Vallejo's Olive from their Mecha Colors range. It's the green I used on my Zaku half cannon. It just has so much yellow in it, which makes you think it's brighter than it actually is. For a color this bright, it was actually pretty easy to paint and didn't give me any trouble whatsoever, which was pretty unexpected. I didn't like how the darker green looked with the lighter one, so I am repainting it. This color has more blue tones in it, which contrasts nicely with all the yellow tones in the lighter green. Looking at how the two greens work together, I think they would be perfect choices for painting the Zaku FC for more in the pocket. Maybe I'll do an FC for Christmas. It's also a pretty good match for Hyzak colors. I painted all the different thrusters my usual basalt gray, and now I'm painting the insides of the thrusters with basic red. It's my favorite red that Vallejo has to offer and is the easiest I've found to work with. The Mobility Zakus have so many thrusters, and there's also those vent looking things on the backpack which need a pop of red on the insides. It's very tedious stuff, but the kit has detail molded on the insides of these surfaces which help me line up my paintbrush and make everything nice and neat. Compared to the 3 to 4 coats of paint on the rest of the Zaku, I only paint 2 at most. Any more and it would be more trouble than it's actually worth. You only get glimpses of red anyways. It's time to start physical chipping, which is my personal favorite weathering step. It's quite satisfying to attack the paint I was careful with and is super easy to accomplish. With physical chipping, I use two tools, metal tweezers and my hobby knife, but today I'm only using tweezers. For general chipping, I use the tweezers' natural springiness to bounce them along the surface and create random chips. With tweezers, you don't need to worry about scraping down to the primer or plastic. The Tamiya spray cans are super tough, which is why I keep buying them even though they're pretty expensive. I can also use tweezers to create scratched effects by scraping them across the paintwork lightly. These small chipping and scratched effects is really where physical chipping shines, as you'll never be able to get this small with a paintbrush. I really value how in scale the result is. The Origin Zakus have lots of panel line detail, and I want to show some edge wear on these panels from being handled during servicing. To do this, I'm just using my tweezers to scribe along the panel line, which reveals the metallic undercoat. It also has the added benefit of removing excess paint, which will help ensure that our later pin wash has something to actually sit inside. Synergy is kinda cool. In a similar vein, I'm also removing paint from parts of the frame to show where paint would scrape off from it moving. For the most part, I choose areas where paint has actually rubbed off in some degree, the most obvious part being right under the knee. But I'll also do this on areas I think paint would rub off, being more stylistic in my choices than anything else. It's time to add decals. I'm pulling decals from quite a few sets, the main one being the G Rework Black Tri-Stars Mobility Zaku set. It's pretty interesting since it has enough decals for 3 Zakus, and has markings in both black and red, and all white since the Tri-Star color scheme has black, white, and purple. I'm getting quite the variety in markings. I'm also using some generic Gundam decals for the classic yellow Xeon emblems, shoulder spike stripes from the Delphi Zaku half cannon set, and checkerboard striping from the Gundam Ground Type S for the skirt. I am aware these stripes should be black and yellow checks instead of black and white, but this is my build and I'm not searching for slightly different decals for a build I'm not even copying 100%. I'm using more decals than usual, which creates a look reminiscent of the original MSV designs. Those seriously have a lot going on, and my result is quite tame by MSV standards. The stand you see me using is the simple stand from Good Smile. It comes with 3 per pack, and most importantly, the peg is the correct size to fit nicely in polycaps, and is compatible with Gunpla kits that have a hole adapter for an action base. Now I'm using my hobby knife to chip up the decals. Since I did chipping beforehand, I have to match up the chipping to these decals, and I only really focus on the larger ones and just scrape at them to remove bits and pieces. I find the smaller markings to be much more trouble than they're actually worth, as a lot of times you'll scrape off an entire decal. I sprayed a coat of Mr. Super Clear Semi-Gloss, and I'll be doing a pin wash, which is an incredibly important step. Probably the most important, as both clean and weathered builders use this technique. A pin wash is the exact same thing as a panel lining, and I use the two phrases interchangeably in my videos. Pin washes accentuate detail and really bring a kit to life by creating fake shadows and all the details you want to highlight. The brush I use is super fine, it's an 18/0, but it's also very short, which is just as important. I've used longer brushes, and the extra length has the potential to get paint where you don't need it, since it can bend and flex in all sorts of ways. Using a super fine brush also means that if you get a bit of wash outside the lines, a set of words that gives me kindergarten flashbacks, it won't show up that much. This really helps when you're trying to focus on both your paintwork and how it shows up on a video. I've decided to show much more of this process in real time than I usually do because of how the light green appears on camera with the semi-gloss on top. Before the pin wash, you can't see the detail too well. It was pretty hard to get the camera to focus, and I'm glad I recorded the entire process. But as I keep using more of the wash, you can really see all the details pop out. It's a tedious but rewarding transition, especially on the high mobility legs, which have much more going on than your standard Zaku ones. As usual, I don't thin out my wash too much, only introducing water to it when I clean off my brush from time to time. It's already at the perfect consistency, which I don't want to mess with. I found that if you add too much water to these pre-made washes, they can sort of break, like an improperly emulsified sauce. Pre-made washes do mean some limitations when it comes to color variety, but I like how they give a consistent result every time. Here's a quick comparison of before and after the wash to show just how important this technique is. I let the wash dry for over 12 hours, and now I'll be adding a light patina to add some aging and even out the harshness of the black wash. This is a custom mixture made from light gray, brown, and black washes, which I'll speckle all over the model. Afterwards, I'll use a flat brush and just streak all of it down, creating an overall patina. This is why I let the wash dry for so long. Moving all of this wet, thin paint could have the potential to move the pin wash we spent so much time on out of the details, which isn't ideal. This is an effect I built up with several passes due to so much of it being removed. But as usual, it's better to have to build some up as opposed to having an effect that's too harsh on the first go. Just like the wash, the patina really transforms the look of the model, reducing the brightness and making it seem more real. I'll then do some speckling with a black and brown wash mixture. In this step, I want the specks of paint to be as small as possible, which means no introducing water to the mixture. You want it as thick as possible. This is 1 to 1/44 scale after all. In addition to creating a patina, speckling can help unify different colors on a model, and when this dries, I'll spray a coat of Mr. Super Clear Flat, and the Zaku is done. It's time to paint the weapons, which actually aren't in time-lapse this time. I'm choosing to use the Zaku machine gun and the Heat Hawk, which are my usual choices for Zaku weaponry. I think bazookas are on the boring side, and I've actually never painted the stored Heat Hawk since I never display it on my completed kits. These colors are classics, Basalt Gray and Green Gray. The two are super solid choices for weaponry, and I like how they give a bit of cohesion among all of my painted Zakus. I am painting the Heat Hawk in Green Gray too, just to be different. I'll cover the weapons in black wash and rub off the excess with a paper towel, which only leaves paint in the details, and when this dries, I spray a coat of Mr. Super Clear Flat. Now I'm painting the Heat Hawk blade. I start off with a flat orange, which will provide a good baseline to work forwards from. Then I use a lighter orange mixture before finalizing things with that lighter orange mixture with some added fluorescent orange. Vallejo's fluorescent orange has terrible coverage, so this method gives me the reliability and color range of standard acrylic with the slight glow of the fluorescent. But with that, the kit is done. Here is our finished mobility Zaku, vaguely inspired by the Baoa Defense Forces. Thank you all for watching. I am actually quite pleased with how this turned out. The brighter greens and all the different decal colors were giving me second thoughts midway through the project, but it is cool looking and actually quite unique, given I rarely do standard Zaku colors. As usual, this is in no way meant to be an explicit statement on what you should be doing with your own Gunpla, but a look into my own process. Next week, we'll continue to look at the 1-year war with the Zaku cannon, so stay tuned for that. It's going to be a pretty in-depth video for a Zaku variant I don't like that much. But if you like the video, consider supporting the channel, and I'll see you in the next video, whenever that is.